Hello, everyone. It's Sunday once again. It's now 2 o'clock in the UK and 9 p.m. in Manila. I hope you're all well. And again, I hope you're keeping safe because the virus is still out there. So make sure you still wear your mask and everything. Yeah. So 2 o'clock. It's time for another episode of Ask the Drummer. I love Sundays because I get a chance to talk to these amazing drummers. And today we're gonna be talking to a drummer who sort of like their music is kind of something that I'm not really very familiar with because it's like shoegaze. I mean, most of my friends know that I'm more sort of like a new waver, not really a shoegaze music fan. But I mean, they're incredible. I saw them live for the first time, and I was just like I said before, it's one of the most amazing, it's the best gigs I've ever been to. Right, I'm gonna bring him in now. Please welcome my dear friends. It's Laurence Colbert.
Hello.
Yay! Oh, sorry, I forgot to ask. Is it Loz or Lawrence? Loz.
Either's fine, really. I mean, yeah, my name's Laurence, but for some people it's too long, so they make it Loz. It just became Loz. But yeah, hello Manila.
Because Loz is actually that's a really nice name because it's almost like I've got a friend in the UAE called Karen and she's called Kaz.
Yeah, it's a sort of British thing. You shorten it. If it's Barry, it's Baz. If it's
Baz, yeah, that's right.
Lawrence, it's Loz.
Yeah, but normally though, Lawrence is like lol, isn't it? Like lol Tolhurst of The Cure.
Yeah. There's sort of different generations of shortening the word Lawrence. I mean, but if you go really far back, it would have been Larry. So thank goodness for that. So
yeah.
I guess like 1950s, it would have been Larry. Then in like the 70s, could have been Lol. Then it was in the 80s, it was Loz. There was one other Loz as well, the Loz from Kingmaker. I was really furious when I heard about that because I thought my name was quite unique, and then there was another Loz, and that annoyed me. But luckily we didn't really sort of mix that much in the genres, so it was okay.
Yeah.
I was a drummer, he was a singer.
Yeah.
But also, I think my name has just always kind of caused, I guess, a bit of consternation and interest. So, I mean, when I was little, we used to write in ink pens. I mean, I actually had an ink pen when I was at primary school. And one of the types of ink was Osmeroid. It was, I think it's called Osmeroid ink. And so I just became Losmeroid. It was like that was my nickname. Was like Losmeroid or Flosmeroid. Right, Losmeroid. And then it's just like a fun name for the kids. I guess about 10 or 11 to call it. Yeah, so I was Losmeroid. And then in a way, it sort of got shortened to Lozzie, and anything like that. And Loza, call me Loza, right? Loza.
It's like Morrissey. It's a Moz or Mozza.
Yeah, Moza. Yeah, anything name.
But LOL, I think LOL has always been even before LOL is a thing. Because now, when you think of LOL, you think of laugh out loud. Like when
exactly.
LOL.
There's a different sort of connotation with LOL. Some people would still call me. I know a couple of people that still call me LOL. Right, LOL.
Yeah, because now it's like whenever you call someone lol, it's all like really funny, isn't it? It's just all like I don't know about you, but for me, it's like lol.
Yeah, it does. It has got that laugh out loud thing. Yeah, maybe people just laughing at me all the time. I don't know. It's just like, or maybe I make them laugh. Maybe I'm being funny.
Well, last time I saw you, and that was the first time I saw you as well, was at the gig in Manchester. It's the 30th anniversary of Nowhere. And
that was good fun to do that because it was I haven't played those songs for a long time, like in that order, and just the whole album, and it's very strange sort of revisiting your 18-year-old self. I know weirdly, even though the title of this program is Ask the Drummer, that we don't talk about much drums, but it was actually it's quite a demanding album, really, because there's this sort of frantic 18 with lots of nervous energy 18-year-old, and then the drumming's quite wild on that. And trying that now as a slightly maturer man, it's kind of, it was quite a challenge, but yeah, you get into it, and I absolutely love playing. I love playing all those songs, and it was really to be able to go back into it, and some the sort of psychodrama of that era. So of that, what we were doing that album, because we were all in quite a dark place when we did that album. So it's when you revisit it, it's kind of it's interesting, because a lot of water under the bridge, but you still have to sort of connect a little bit with that, because that was what was behind the music. Like filling out a form back then. Oh yes, I think I'll just play this. You actually really feel it emotionally. That's why that was directing most of the playing, was just how do you feel? Angry. Play angry drums.
Well, I must admit that, like I've mentioned earlier, shoegaze is actually something that I missed out on, because that was actually the first time as well for me to sort of like get into Ride, and I'm one of your sort of like, for me it's something new, even though it was like 30 years ago. When I saw you play live in Manchester, it was really exciting for me, because it was new for me, so like a new fan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, it's funny though, isn't it? We've been around at that time when shoegaze was around. But I mean, watching that, would you call that shoegaze? Was it like, was it kind of? It's. I mean, I've always felt like it was a bit more. We've got a bit more kind of energy on stage than a shoegaze. The typical thing is that they're staring at their pedals, not connecting with you, and there's a big wall of noise while nothing happens. I mean, that's not. I don't sound like one of our gigs. But I think maybe at first there was a little bit of shyness, but yeah, it's a funny one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really use many pedals. He uses like a sort of a compressor and a distortion, but he's not like a sort of big dirgy sort of wall of noise. You can't even tell what chord it is. Anyway, it's a funny one. We've got to try very hard. We've got to sort of put our foot on the pedal and run really hard to avoid that tag, but I've never really felt that we were quite that bad.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
it's a very broad genre now, and in a way back then it was kind of it was a bit derogatory, but now it's just become I guess music that's got guitar effects and a little bit of a dreamy vocal, or even it's quite romantic lyrics, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's all good. I don't mind.
Well, before we actually go to the Ask the Drummer bit, there's a question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
It's about Mick Head. Now, do you like Mick Head, or do you know Mick Head? Michael Head? Michael Head?
It sounds familiar, but I've terrible kind of memory for these sort of things. But yeah, it does sound familiar.
The reason why I'm asking is, when I went to see Mark and ask him to sign my poster and ask for a photograph, he noticed the T-shirt I was wearing, and he said, "What's that on your T-shirt?" It says Michael Head, but it's sort of like a Motorhead lettering.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So it's that one, and he said, "What's that on your T-shirt?" I said, "It's Michael Head." And I said, "Who?" He said, "Michael Head, Mick Head from." And then I said to him, it didn't register with him. And I said, "They're from the Pale Fountains," and it still didn't. So like that. And I said, "Shaq, Mick Head of Shaq," and he still didn't. So like.
Well, yeah, I probably would have definitely chimed in at Shaq, but yeah.
It was all like thinking, "Oh my God, how come he didn't know about Mick Head?" So, but do you remember sort of like Shaq?
Yeah, I remember. I was into Shaq for a while, and and it's one of those things, isn't it? Everyone's musical points of reference so different. People, you can stumble into an album and stay there for years, completely transfixed by it, and meanwhile somebody else is getting into a different a different genre or different album, and it's tricky, isn't it? Because everybody's got such complex musical references. But yeah, absolutely, I did really like Shaq for a while, and enjoyed that sound.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So I want to just say hello to the people who joined us live. Hello to Rob. Rob Jones is in Liverpool, I think, or maybe he's still on holiday. But hello, Rob.
I love.
Neil Barker is my colleague at King B. He said hi, Laws.
I
Yeah, so Neil will be here for an hour. And also hello to Trevor Palmer, who's in Skipton. So he said, "Good afternoon, Lawrence."
Good.
And he's saying that your music is rockier than shoegaze. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's. I know that we'll, in the record shop, we'll probably always get files there. But I think myself and Andy were just having a chat one day, and we were kind of like, you know what? It's like weird because he was saying I only use like 2 pedals. No, that's not true. He does use a lot of pedals, but he doesn't use. They're mainly like compression and stuff like that. Anyway, yeah, we're a bit more.
Also, hello to Vincent Brifo, who's in Paris, I think he's in Paris or France.
Yeah.
So he said, "Hi, Laws, you're in my top 5 drummer ever."
Oh, merci beaucoup.
Yeah. And Neil also said that definitely more tuneful than most of the shoegazing bands.
Yeah. I think we definitely had some melody.
Yeah, and Aiden, who's my husband, who's also my tech support, he said that sound and vision are okay, so that's good. It's nice when he says that. It's good though. And also got a message from Derek McDonald, who's in Scotland. I think he said that you're one of the absolute best of your generation, and in fact, you're his favorite drummer ever. So
wow.
Yeah. Right, so we're going to start now. So welcome to Ask the Drummer. Episode 45 is all about you, Laurence Colbert.
Yeah.
So Ride from Oxford. It's like an Oxford man. But according to Wikipedia, you're born in Kingston upon Thames?
Yeah, we love Wikipedia. Yeah, it's absolutely great bit of research. Yeah, absolutely. Kingston upon Thames, Surrey. Yeah, that's where I was born, and lived there till I was about 10 or 11, I think, and then moved up to the sort of the country. Eventually,
Cotswold, it says.
What?
The Cotswold.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this is one of the secrets behind why I got to play the drums. Really, was because. Yeah, I mean, we grew up in a suburbia in London, but in Kingston, and playing drums there wouldn't go down so well. But once we'd moved, and I had no interest in real drumming, but once I'd had my epiphany, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point. But once I'd had my epiphany, it was like, and I wanted to get a drum kit. We lived in the middle of nowhere because we were in the Cotswolds. We lived in the middle of the forest, effectively. No neighbours, no nothing, and I could actually smash away at my drum kit all day long and not bother anyone. And so that's in a sense, just even that move out of London is probably one of the key factors in why I became a drummer.
Oh wow! Well, because the Cotswolds is actually one of those, from someone who's not born in the UK, it's one of those places that if we want to visit the UK, we should go to the Cotswolds because of all those thatched houses.
Oh yeah, it's very sleek and quiet.
So beautiful.
But meanwhile, secretly in the middle of a forest was something crazy was brewing, and that wanted to become unleashed upon the world. And that was me.
So, what was it? Because I would say that the Cotswold or maybe Kingston upon Thames is there like a music scene?
Not really there, but have you ever watched the program This Country?
No.
Oh, that is beautiful program. Absolutely beautiful. And I had to watch it anyway. It's the story of 2 kids growing up in the Cotswolds, basically. and it's done in a fake documentary like The Office or something like that. And I absolutely love
Oh,
it. It's one of my favorite comedies because everything in it's true, really. And yeah, so it's quite sort of sleepy. There wasn't much of a music scene per se, and the first bands that I was in were kind of like covers bands. But I have to say, when I was saying in the middle of a forest something evil was brewing, really my first band was with a couple of mates, and we were called the Thrashing Bastards of Mayhem, and our main I was on drums, and the other instrument that we had was a chainsaw, an actual chainsaw. And also, what we used to do is we had some interesting microphone techniques. A lot of the producers and engineers around might like to, take notes for this, but we would actually put a microphone in the liquidizer and then press liquidize or whatever to get that really interesting sort of distortion sound. So yeah, we used to liquidize microphones, and chainsaw was the kind of main instrument. And then there'd be some drums and maybe some shouting, and yeah, that was good fun. That was a really interesting band to be in.
oh,
But never played a gig. We did a demo we did a recording on a cassette, and that was, I think
yeah.
there's only one copy in the world, I'm afraid, so it's super rare. But that's the kind of thing that you do in the Cotswolds, that sort of thing's going on behind the scenes, but there isn't really much of an actual music scene per se. I mean, yeah, I think it's almost like the ground that gives birth to maybe some musicians that then go on to form bands maybe elsewhere. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't think of an actual scene per se about everyone checking each other out.
But
No.
so have you always been into drumming though? Is that always? Did you not think that maybe I'll try the guitar or maybe keyboards or piano or something?
Yeah, I think I just I mean, this is it. I've always been interested in music. Funny thing that, but I think there was a piano in our house, and I remember teaching myself Madness. Is it Our House or something that dun dun
Yeah,
dun dun dun.
yeah. Our house, yeah.
So pleased once I'd worked that out. Just absolutely, and it's quite rhythmic anyway. But yeah, I was always interested in music, and I used to use remember those two cassettes you used to have. You
You
could
could record.
could record a cassette.
Yeah.
Some people would use that to duplicate music, but also I worked out that if you could plug a microphone in and use it as a really really crude form of multi-track. So you would record something and then you'd play it back, and then with the microphone record something else over the top, and then you get the whole sound of the room and everything, but then you'd have two things, and then you could play it back, and then you could record something over the top. And it was really rough and awful, and had so much tape noise on it and all the rest of it. But you could, and I used to do stuff at home. I suppose, admittedly, maybe by then I had got the drum kit. But yeah, basically, yeah, I guess it has been drums, and then after that, it was afterwards really that I sort of learned guitar and
Yeah.
but yeah,
Did
it has been the drums really. I have to be honest. I can't claim anything else.
did you ever go for lessons, or did you just sort of like teach yourself how
No,
to?
it was very much sort of self-taught, and just a sort of feeling that came out. It was weirdly quite instant. I remember sort of sitting down at a kit and just it just all seemed to fall together really. There was one. I think the sort of one of the epiphany moments was on a holiday with my dad, and Adam and the Ants' "Dog Eat Dog" came on the radio,
Yeah.
and I can only describe it as like time just stopped. Once I heard those drums, the big tribal intro to that, it was as if nothing else was happening, and I was just completely.
Yeah.
Time had stopped. It was just everything stopped, but I was just I could hear these drums, and it was just I want to do that. It was speaking to me, and I needed to do that. And I went on a German exchange, weirdly, and my German exchange had a drum kit in his basement, and it was kind of it was just the most amazing thing. He just hitting any single drum just felt incredible, and then he taught me how to play a beat. And once I played my first beat, that's it. No going back. I came back and I was just like, I need a drum kit. I must have a drum kit. My parents had split up, but weirdly, what brought them back together was sorting out the drum kit. So I think my dad found it, and then he brought it up, and my mum came and met him, and the drum kit was this wonderful kind of, brought them back together to just give to me. And then once I got that kit, I was off. And it had lots of toms. It had about 4 or 5 toms, and they're all tuned. I didn't know about tuning or anything. They're all tuned quite high, and I used to sort of write melodies on the toms because they all had a note almost. They all sort of had notes. So I used to sort of try and almost like trying to be working out melodies on the drums. I can remember that. I've forgotten the name. It's that sort of down now. It's everybody. What's that?
Yeah.
That for some reason.
Oh my god, yeah, I know that.
Maybe at the time, and I used to sort of play that on the toms, like dum 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 boom boom.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah, I know that one as well. But
give me this approach of quite a melodic style of just in a way I've got something going on in my head. That's what I'm trying to play, and so I used to spend a long time weirdly doing quite a lot of melodic stuff on the kit.
Yeah, well, Trevor Palmer and Neil Barker said it's Peter Gunn. It's called Peter Gunn.
That's it.
That's
yeah.
See, I remember I've forgotten the title as well, but
but it was Pete De Freitas. I can't go on enough about him. Pete De Freitas from Echo and the Bunnymen. He had that tribal quality to his playing. It's very much on the toms, and it was so emotional. It's so emotional. I think it was just he was such a free spirit, and he was such a emotional player. And this is where I sit. I'm not a technical drummer. I'm never going to be doing a drum clinic. Check out my amazing chops. Look at my technique. This is how you do it, kids. But if it's like emotion, and if it's like a feeling, then I can do it. I'm your man, sort of thing. And Pete De Freitas for me was that he was just such a good, like, he had power and passion and emotion in his drumming, and that's really where I emerged from. I wasn't trying to do anything like super fast or super technical. Just that. So that's where it kind of emerged from. Pete De Freitas and Echo and the Bunnymen, and Adam and Nance.
Yeah. So you talk about Adam and Nance. So are we talking about Dave Barbarossa, because he's the one who's doing all the tribal?
Well, they had 2 drummers. They had 2 drummers. That was, which makes them even better, really. I think it was the Burundi drummers was meant to be the influence. And I was finding that and listening to it, and it is really interesting. There's this real sort of push and pull on the drumming. It's interesting. You could call it swing, but it's a real sort of tempo kind of pushes and pulls. It's really interesting, and actually, that's a really interesting part of drumming. Sometimes is when it does push and pull, and it's not just always on the metronome. That can give you a good feeling too.
Well, let's talk about Oxford, because Rye being from Oxford. Now that's another sort of like place for the visitors in the UK they want to go to that place because it's one of the seats of learning, isn't it? I mean, it's like Oxford.
This is the actual seat of learning that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
No, it is. That's got a good name for itself.
Yeah. So that's where you met the other band members.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I only ended up adopting Oxford as my home because effectively that's where the tour bus would stop. If we're fast forwarding a bit, let's say the band happened and all that kind of stuff, and we'd get to the end of the tour and it would be like everyone would get dropped off at their houses, and I would just be like, so I'd stay with a friend or something, and then eventually I got a job and paid rent, and so just so I could be in the same city. So I kind of adopted Oxford as my home. Whereas before, when I was in the Cotswolds, Oxford was the big city. It was like, ooh, going to Oxford, wow. Yeah, but they were from there. But I met them at Banbury Art College. So the point of meeting was when we all, for different reasons, apart from Steve Quelt, the bass player, myself, Mark, and Andy, we all went to art college, North Oxfordshire Technical College, which is in Banbury, and that's where we met, and that's where that's where, well, effectively I met Mark, and he and I talked about music, and then he said,
Yeah,
oh, yeah, I've got this, I've got this band that I'm in, or he played me some stuff that they'd done as a sort of demo. I think it had a drum machine on it, and then it was kind of like, oh yeah, I can do some drums. I'd do some drums for that. And then we did a rehearsal in my mum's garage in a house, and then that was it. The band had started then.
okay. Well, going back to all these messages from our friends, Richard Bourne said that Ride is one of my favorite bands and live amongst the best on the circuit. He also wanted to ask you, how fun is it to do Drive Blind live?
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's I wrote a little piece on this, and a while back, and yeah, I'm happy to really simplify it now. But it's the great thing about that is that it's completely it's when we go completely off script, and actually going back to what we were saying earlier, Ride's quite melodic, and sometimes a Ride gig can be song, 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 verse, chorus, middle eight, verse, chorus, harmony, 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 melody, 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 song, song, song. And when you get to Drive Blind, it's the moment where you can just sort of like almost take the needle off and put it on something dangerous, and it's just like, it's just noise, just noise, no verse, chorus, middle eight, no bars, no counting, no nothing, no clever lyrics, it's just total noise, and it's all about like the immensity of that noise. And I wrote this article. Basically, noise is a really powerful. Noise has got a lot going for it. It's like it can tell you a lot of things about the world. You can almost go to somewhere quite transcendental when listening to real noise. Like I'm talking about a wall of noise, and even white noise. I mean, people fall asleep to it, but also it's kind of got all the frequencies in it. And it says so much. So it feels great to just be completely lost in that, just going absolutely mental and just making as much noise as possible, and then come back in and finish the song. So yeah, it's just good fun because it's like, it's just something different, to the usual. It's a bit more subversive, and it's a bit more dangerous, and also people don't know how long it's going to go on for, whether you're just going to keep playing that noise.
Yeah.
And like, or whether you're gonna, it's got that sort of element to it, and it is just great fun to just go off script, don't have to worry about anything, just stand up and smash your cymbals.
Yeah. Well, maybe some people probably won't like me saying this, but isn't that what shoegaze is about?
Yeah.
Isn't that about noise?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but this is the one. This is like, this is what I mean. It's like, it's so controlled. It seems. It's like,
Yeah.
It feels like the rest of it is so melodic, and then this is the one song when you get just noise. But yeah, I mean, I get, those the shoegaze bands were interested in noise because it was a way of reacting to the shininess of the 80s and everything being perfect and polished and squeaky clean, and bright, vibrant colors. So shoegaze and noise with the kind of element of noise, like the Mary Chain, really the ultimate one. I mean, the noise there was just fantastic. It was just like a breath of fresh air, weirdly, but it just wiped away all of that stupid squeaky clean stuff, and just, it was like, no, this is where it's at. And noise, is sort of, so it's got a lot going for it. And so yeah, so in a way that shoegaze is something that came after the Mary Chain. And, and it's really taking that sort of more like silent but powerful element, and a sensitivity that it's sort of, when you're nervous, you come up. We were sort of slightly nervy teenagers, and so in some ways you want to make more of a make more of a noise, basically, because you're you just get kind of like frantic and just go crazy, and that was what a Ride gig was like back in the day.
Yeah, well, for us, like I said, being from the Philippines, the Jesus and Mary chain, we consider
Yeah,
them as new wave, even though
yeah,
maybe that's not the right genre for it. But yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, I also want to say hello to W. Frederick, who's from California. He's
yeah.
watching us. He's got a question for you as well. He said, "How much do you enjoy improvising whilst drumming?" And thank you for being an inspiration.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, the inspiration of the improvisation. I mean, like, I think I think the good and the bad thing about me is that initially in my in Ride was that I never played the same song, the same way twice. In some ways, it was always a little bit different, and that's because I didn't know how to. I wasn't trying to be clever or anything. It was just like it would always be a little bit different, maybe, and that was just I didn't really know how to just it didn't make sense to stick to a pattern or to play the same fill every time or even do a certain thing in a certain place. And I guess I've sort of come from really enjoying jazz drummers and stuff like that when it was all about like more like being in the moment, I guess, and just sort of the creativity that comes with that. I used to love playing drums. I guess it comes from playing drums on my own in the middle of the forest where I could do what I want. And there's music in my head, and I'm playing along to it. And when I got together with a bunch of people, it kind of carried on that way. I was
Yeah,
just, yeah,
yeah,
what about this? What about that? Oh, I could do this. And you're sort of like you're just having. It's creative. You're in the moment, and you're trying to find what's right for the song, as opposed to a really sort of structured. Right, I'm going to play this beat all the way up to here, then a fill, then a crash, then just that beat, and then a fill, and then I'm going to do another beat, and I'm going to do that every single time I play that song. That would be like the kind of 80s arrangement style. And in a way, I guess my style was, again, a bit of a reaction to that, where it's just always evolving and always a little bit different and organic, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, I love improvising. If anything, I have to try and, slap my wrist and say, come on, play the song. And I do that more now because I'm a bit more grown up.
Well, we'll talk about the formation of Ride because, again, from Wikipedia, it
Yeah,
says that Ride was formed in 1988
yeah,
um, after attending a Smiths concert. And I'm just so like thinking, didn't they disband in 1987? So
yeah,
the
yeah.
Smiths
That's right.
disbanded. So I was all like, did you so like watch the Smiths in 1987 and then you didn't form until a year later in
No, no,
1988?
that's just somebody. That's definitely a sort of classic sort of um, misinformation, fake news. I mean, Mark and Andy were well into the Smiths. That's true. You're right. I think the Smiths had broken up possibly by the time,
Yeah,
which is true. But if you wanted to if we wanted to sort of take that sentence and make it more true, you could say it would be something like after watching a My Bloody Valentine concert, because that would have been more like it. But even that didn't happen. We formed because we met at art college really, and found that similar interest in music. We were all into like the House of Love, Juice and Mary Chain, the Cocteau Twins, My Bloody Valentine, Loop, Dinosaur Jr. Those were the ones that we were all listening to separately and
yeah.
individually. And in a way, it's like take all that, squash it together, with four teenagers, and then you get you sort of, yeah. Oh, and of course, Andy, massive Beatles fan. So
Oh, yeah,
all
yeah.
of that comes in. So it's just like a kind of mixture of all those things. But no, we definitely didn't go to a Smiths concert and then go home. Right, let's form a band. That's not true.
And it's always been the four of you. There's no sort of like change in the lineup.
No,
It's yeah.
no,
Um
we've never had to have a stand-in for anyone, and thank goodness for that. And so yeah, it has always been the same four characters, and that in a way that's quite a beautiful thing. I had to go to a room the other day, and I saw this picture that just kind of really floored me, and it's a shot of us even before we recorded anything, and it because we went to art school, everyone had a camera, and someone just took this picture of us all squashed in, and it's kind of it's amazing, 17, 18, and
yeah.
it's still the same people after all these years, and that's what we've done all these things. It's,
Yeah.
I don't get those moments that often, but it was like, wow.
Well, again, it says this is also like Wikipedia because there's like so many things because again, Ride is new to me. So, the things that I'm sort of like gonna ask you are mainly what's online and what's on Google
Yeah,
or what's on Wikipedia. So, it says that in 1989 you supported the Soup Dragons. Now, the
yeah,
Soup Dragons, they're big in the Philippines as well.
yeah,
They're really big. So,
yeah.
was that your first gig?
Not our first gig.
Mhm.
We'd definitely been, busting out into the local Oxford scene. We'd supported some bands locally in Oxford, and I don't know how, but we managed to get on a support tour for the Soup Dragons. Now, Soup Dragons is another one of those bands that I used to play that record in the at school or where we were lucky enough we could have a little there was like a common room you could play music, and yeah, just can't take no more or whatever, and that was a great one to put on. And so the Soup Dragons were huge in our minds. It was like a really big band. And yeah, and we went on we got on a tour, so it was a case of like transit vans, sleeping bags. We didn't have cases for anything. It was just chuck all the instruments in, and I don't know, yeah, guitars wrapped up in towels, and we
Yeah,
managed to just like hang on, but with our fingernails to this tour and turn up and sound check and play every night. Really different, but basically along that tour, and it is true, we did support them. Alan McGee was coming to see us, and various record company people were coming to check us out. So really, it was almost like halfway through that tour that McGee was kind of like, I want to sign you, and was the one that seemed to be emerging as being the guy to say, I'm gonna, I want you to put a record out, sort of thing.
yeah. But is it true that Jim Reed from the Jesus and Mary chain got hold of your demo, and it was him who actually
Yeah,
is that true? It was him who said,
I've heard it from different people, but yeah, it's Laurence, lovely French lady that used to do press in creation. Weird, late Laurence and Lawrence, but our names are spelled exactly the same. But yeah, she was going out with Jim, I think, and I think she put it on in the car, and one time, and he thought, oh, this is all right. Who is it or something? And she said who it was, and then I think he may have mentioned it to someone, and yeah, it was something like that. That's the way I'd
yeah,
heard. But definitely it was one. It was great because yeah, possibly Jim Reed played a part in all this.
wow.
And I mean, I'm
Well,
a total Mary Chain fan, and I love the idea that could have happened. I mean, yeah, yeah. So
yeah, that sounds amazing. It was because I love Jim Reed as well. I mean, imagine so like Jim Reed saying to Alan McGee maybe, oh, this band is amazing. You should sort of like sign them. And
yeah,
you being a fan of the Juice and Mary chain as well,
massive.
that must have been
Yeah, absolutely massive. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, W. Frederick said, did you ever tour with bands such as Kitchens of Distinction, Brian Jonestown Massacre, or Cranes?
Not the Cranes or the Brian Jonestown Massacre, but we did do. I think we certainly did a few gigs with the Kitchens of Distinction. We might have done a sort of mini tour, certainly. Yeah, I think that's sort of ringing a few bells. I mean, again, another band I really like around that time as well, Kitchens of Distinction. Yeah, so we might have done a mini tour with them. But I
Yeah.
can't remember the Cranes. We might have played a gig with the Cranes. And what was the other band?
Kitchens of Distinction?
Oh, that's the one that I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah.
But it was Cranes, and he mentioned another one.
Brian Jonestown
Oh yeah,
Massacre? Yeah.
no, we haven't
Yeah.
done. I mean, what's weird is that after the band split, it's almost like we're trying to get everyone in the band was trying to get an award for working with the supposedly the hardest people in British indie music. So Andy goes and plays in Oasis.
Oasis, yeah.
No. And I end up playing for the Mary Chain with Jim and William. And then Mark was working with Anton from Brian Jonestown Massacre. So it was kind of like, what is it?
I see. Right. Okay.
Maybe we're just good energies.
Yeah. Well, he also said, "Would you mind talking about a memorable show or tour?" Because he
Again,
said
so
that
again,
those.
what was that?
Did you mind talking about a memorable show or
Memorable
tour?
show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember we did a tour with Mercury Rev, Mercury Rev Point One, if you see what I mean. Before when they were they were just chaotic. It was like, and I just all I can really remember is that it was the sort of gig where you didn't know whether everyone was going to show up. It was people might leave the band or just not make it or be too off their heads. Sound checks were just completely like I don't think they ever really did a sound check. It was either we're playing or we're not. Nobody cared. It was just sort of it was almost like they did a gig in the sound check. And again, just a really intense wall of noise, and that was fun. I remember having some great chats with I can't remember now, but the singer at the time, and also yeah, and somebody, the drummer, had a great chat with the drummer, and he gave me all the sort of drummer tips that I still use today. One of which is this weird thing you can do with drumsticks when you sort of bend your arms inside out like that, and then out again. And he showed me this trick, and it's really good for warming up your kind of your forearms. And I'll
Oh,
never forget that, the Mercury Rev drummer. But it was just chaotic. They had flute players and I don't know, like mandolins, and seemed like there was about 10 people on stage, some of whom were either like tripping or wasted, and some, yeah, just you never kind of knew what was going to happen. It was quite exciting, in a way. So
yeah.
I guess the Mercury Rev tour was one that definitely I
It's
think really kind of
memorable for you.
memorable, sticks out. Yeah, kind of a bit crazy, but
Yeah.
maybe in a good way.
Richard Bourne said, just wondering if Ride were fans of the American band Duster.
Duster,
Duster, yeah. He said it's a band that he's obsessed with and can
right?
definitely see a resemblance with the loud guitars wrapped with beautiful melodies. So, have you heard of Duster?
No, weirdly, no. I can't
USDR?
even really claim to have said to have sort of like usual phrase like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of them," but I
No.
don't really know. So
Well, okay. Also, it says again on Wikipedia that Ride were big in Japan.
yeah,
You were big because it says that when you did a gig there, or maybe I don't know if it's a tour or a gig, the tickets were sold within minutes.
it was.
So what
It was
was?
yeah, I mean, it was just all I can remember is that it, we were sort of, four sort of geeky teenagers, fed up, depressed because our girlfriends had finished with us, shy, unassuming, you know, yeah, very shy and all the rest of it, and kind of making a bit of a noise at the gig, kind of noisy band, whatever, and then before we knew it, we were on a plane to Japan where it's everybody gets this when they go there, but it was just people get swamped at the airport, and it was like a Hard Day's Night. For the
Yeah, yeah,
like bundled into cars, people banging on the windows, everybody like chasing you down streets, whatever, and we just couldn't get our heads around it. We were just so sort of we just weren't really used to it, and it was like not just fame, but it just felt like this other thing that we've never experienced before, and yeah, for some reason it just really took hold in Japan. I've had a
yeah,
good relationship with that country, and just gone back several times, and have always had an incredible audience, and a lot of love and support, and it's always been absolutely fantastic. I subsequently have just fallen in love with the food and the artwork and the culture and the
yeah, yeah,
sort of spirituality and the some of the history and just yeah, the people as well. Really, just the people that I've met. So I've got a very soft spot for. I'm very fond of Japan anyway, and so yeah, it's worked out really well. But yeah, back then it just seemed to happen really quickly. One minute we were playing the Camden Falcon, and then we were sort of on a live broadcast in Japan playing to 2,000 people. Which back then was huge for us because we'd only really put an EP out or something, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it took it. We could definitely do that cliche and say we were big in Japan.
But did you tour America?
We did eventually, and I think we did it with Lush. Might have done it with Lush first. I can't remember if we. I think we did a split headline where we take it in turns, and we also did one of those with Slow Dive. So bringing shoegaze to the masses. Like you get not one but two shoegaze bands. So yeah, but I can't remember doing one on our own. But we did. We basically, one of the things about Ride is that once we started playing live, we didn't really stop until the band split up. Now that can be a good thing and a bad thing, and I think it may have been a bit of a bad thing because it meant that we all got fed up with each other, and it may have been one of the reasons why it led to the band falling apart. But there was no sense of why don't you just come off the road for a bit and just just take a break.
Yeah, yeah,
Have a creative, clear your mind. Let's think about the new. Maybe just take a break. Basically, we kind of never did. So we just always seemed to go from tour to tour and gig to gig, and so yeah, we toured America, we toured Japan, we toured Australia, Europe, and then we just start all over again, start in the UK. It's just
yeah,
somewhere in there. Oh, a little bit of recording, and then back out on the road. Sometimes going out on the road in the middle of a recording session. So,
yeah.
so yeah, we definitely toured America. Yeah.
Was there sort of like a big difference between the audience in Japan and then the audience in America, or is it?
Yeah, completely. Because I mean, I suppose the definite difference between that and an English crowd, because a lot of the English crowd can be sort of sat at the back with a pint, vaguely nodding their head, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Inside, they're going mental. They're absolutely loving it, maybe, or you hope so, or maybe they're thinking, "Oh, this is rubbish. When's the next band going to come on?" But it's that sort of held back, sort of kind of coolness. And actually, I mean, you want to say that everyone went crazy in Japan, but in some ways they're quite well behaved as well. But there was I guess maybe maybe people are just a bit more free with their expression of enjoyment of a concert of live music in America
yeah,
and Japan. And in America, people would, I guess, they would just be more inclined to tell you if they like your music or to shout something out or to,
yeah, yeah,
whereas maybe not so much in England because they're a bit more standoffish. You
yeah.
know,
Because
you know,
we
you,
always say that the Japanese so like audience, they're very so like reserved and
yeah,
polite. They're enjoying it, but they're just so like
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's weird, isn't it? I know exactly what you're talking about, but then once the gig's finished, everyone goes mental. Like. Um, but yeah, I mean, they were. It's caught us out on occasion. You finish a song, and there's a sort of really polite applause.
yeah, that's
You think, God, is it that bad? Are we that bad? Like, it sounds so kind of like token. There's no shouting. No nothing. So yeah, that actually weirdly, possibly Japanese audience could be more reserved, but you got the feeling that they were enjoying it more though.
yeah, yeah. Trevor said, did you play with this French band called My Jealous God?
Oh yeah.
Independent
I
Southern?
don't think I played. I don't think I actually played with them. I did end up playing with a lot of bands in Oxford. Nine Stone Cowboy was the one with my good friend Mark Cope. That was a really nice time playing for him, and I played with a lot of bands just in Oxford, friends and people that was I was just kind of either helping them out or just felt like doing it. But My Jealous God, I don't think I actually played, and if I did, sorry, it might have just been one of those nights when hi, I'm your drummer for the evening. Maybe I don't actually remember. I remember that the name of that band, but I can't
Yeah.
actually sing a gig.
Right. Well, in 1996, Ride disbanded.
Yeah,
And but then you and Mark
yeah,
formed the Animal House
yeah,
soon after.
yeah,
So, what was that like? It was short lived, though, according to
yeah,
again, according
yeah.
to yes.
Now, the Animal House was probably more the cliche big in Japan because we had virtually no success in the UK, but we could go out there and do some decent festivals. Fuji Rock and whatever and have you, and Summer Sonic, and whereas in
Yeah.
the UK we were just doing like just the first rung. So yeah, weirdly that band was big in Japan, but not in the UK.
All
Um,
right.
and really, it was just I think it was the uh, Animal House was kind of like I've sometimes thought of it as like the negative, the polar opposite of everything about Ride, of what Ride was like. It was anything that happened in Ride didn't happen in Animal House, and anything that happened in Animal House didn't happen in Ride in some ways. So, for example, drumming wise, I was playing to a click, and I was playing absolutely strict arrangements, exactly the same every time. I can think of the sort of setup where you've got like it's keyboards as part of the
Yeah.
band,
Yeah.
samplers. We had a female bass player. The songs could do anything. They could stop, start, turn on the sixpence, go into a bit of acid jazz or like Latin style music, and then back again, and then a bit of drum and bass. It was just sort of kind of really crazily different to the experience in Ride, where it was more of an organic thing that we all created together in the moment, and
Yeah. Yeah.
all of that, where the song could be different anytime depending on how you felt, and you all co-created that moment. So yeah, the
Yeah.
Animal House is more like a kind of constructed band, and
Yeah.
it was Sam Williams that was the main guy behind, one of the the driving force behind it, and he was very much a producer, kind of trying to sort of piece it together rather than let it happen organically.
No, but it's just a shame though that according to Mark, apparently it just didn't work.
Yeah, and I don't know, I don't really know why, but it was there was a sort of a bit of a psychodrama going on, and before it was difficult. I don't know what it was really, but by the
Yeah.
end you realise, oh God, and here we are at the end of another band. It was so it was so good because we had we had a lot of excitement about it. We had the head of BMG coming down and to watch us play, and was rolled away, and we signed to a major record company, and
Yeah.
all the sort of the trimmings of that were starting to come together, and it was really exciting. It felt like we were on the brink of something really really quite big. And when you listen to the album, there's some pretty powerful sort of pop tracks in there. We were on TFI Friday. We did that live, and a few other things. As I say, less successful in England. It was definitely happening in Japan.
In Japan, yeah. Yeah.
It was just, I think it was just maybe just a combination of people. It just didn't seem to quite. We did, yeah, just didn't seem to work.
Yeah, that's a shame. But then, so I mean, the timeline is so like really there's like big gaps because, and then it says that in 2001 you did a one-off reunion, but this is like Ride.
Yeah,
Did a one-off reunion for a Channel 4 documentary. I mean,
yeah,
I should have known because I was already living here in the UK at the time, and I used to watch a lot of music programs on Channel 4. But I just didn't, I didn't sort of like know of this sort of like Sonic Youth
yeah.
documentary.
I don't think I've ever
And
seen it, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I've heard it referred to so many times, and yeah, of course, we got together and we did this. We basically got together and started playing, and somebody pressed record, and that's it. Nobody had anything prepared. No, and we just whatever it was what it was. And yeah, I don't think I've even seen the program, but it ended up getting released as an EP. Yeah.
right, and so after that, then you didn't actually reform until 2014, which is just sort of like a long gap.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
you played the Jesus and Mary Chain and also Supergrass,
yeah. That was really good.
Gas
Yeah.
Coombs. So
Oh,
why
it
did
was
it?
working with Gaz, definitely one of absolutely wonderful times working with him, and yeah, those really, 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 yeah, really good times. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah. So why was there like a long gap? So what happened? You didn't. Well, you did the one-off reunion in 2001, but why didn't you just carry on? And
Um,
you know,
I
I
think
mean,
it was,
2014 when you finally reformed.
yeah, I think it was just like wait until everyone was into it. Really, it's that sort of thing where I think the offers used to come in fairly regularly, but somebody, maybe three would go yeah, and then one would go nah, you know, and then maybe the next couple of years later, that one that said no was saying yes, but then the one that said yes was saying no, and it just went on like that. Really, it was a bit like paper, scissors, stone. And then finally one day, everyone went yes.
So you definitely back. I mean, rider back now. So like, you did the tour this
Oh
year.
yeah, yeah,
Mm, yeah, yeah.
yeah. We've done
Um,
2 albums and an EP, and yeah, and I've toured all the material, the new stuff, and I mean it always was like that with Right. We always had so much more to give, I think, and it all finished way too early and for all the wrong reasons. It was so silly in some ways, and it just felt like there's so much potential there that never really got explored, and the time apart
yeah,
was kind of, I think it was frustrating for everyone, even if you're in a big band and doing well, and I think even for those people it was frustrating because they didn't have much of a creative outlet, and so it was kind of like it really worked when we did finally get back together in a room and everyone had tons of ideas, and it was just all, it took a while to get going. It was like a tap that it was a little bit drift. It was a little bit stiff at first, but then it just started.
what?
Yeah, and subsequently it hasn't stopped. It is weird, but all I agreed to do was a week of shows back in 2014. In 2015, and that's all we all did. We all just said, yeah, we'll do a 2-week tour. And we'll do Primavera,
Yeah,
we'll do this, and we'll do that, and the shows just kept getting added and added, and we just spent the whole year touring in 2015. It just didn't
wow.
it didn't stop, and then at the end of that we had loads of stuff for a new album. So it was always like, always wanted it to be like that. I didn't want to do a sort of short-sighted reunion where you just get together, play the songs,
Play
take
the
the break,
same.
and then
Yeah,
go bye. It was kind of, no, we've got new music we want to make, and I feel really lucky. I'm really glad that we've had a great shot at finding out what that new music is, and
yeah,
I'm proud of the last 2 albums. I really am. I really am. I mean, I think they're really good. I think they're as good as anything we've done, and there's not a single note in there that anybody's gone, oh, that'll do. We really thought about it.
yeah, yeah. Well, Divya Frederick said, "How has your drumming technique evolved over time? And do you have any goals as a drummer that you'd like to accomplish?"
My technique has evolved from being non-existent to just like I said, like the idea of somebody. I remember doing some session drumming after the band finished, and in a way it was kind of like if somebody said, you play a version of the song, and then they go, oh yeah, that was really good, but could you try it like this? And it's just like, I, you know, how? I don't know. I only know what I played it. That's
Yeah,
it. I don't mind doing it again, but you're going to get something different. No, no ability to sort of focus in on any particular aspect. Really, it's just like different versions. I don't know. All I'm trying to say is, yeah, not much technique before, but then I decided to go to I really did want to improve my ability, and I went to Drum Tech, and I did a year's course there, which was full time, and I learned everything from Latin percussion to reading music to an actual module called Drum Techniques, which was really, really good. Finally learned how to play the bass drum, how to hold my sticks, and so I really soaked all that up, and then in a
yeah,
way I've drawn upon that for everything that's happened since, and so I've used that to make myself much more of a decent sort of session player. And if when you get asked to play for Supergrass or St Etienne, I can use all of those techniques. Writing down the music, scoring it out, working out which techniques are going to create what sounds, and that one course has stood me in good stead. Also for teaching as well. I've never been able to teach anyone because I didn't really know what I was doing. And weirdly, all of my success happened without any lessons. So I'd done, all the world tours, gold records, blah, 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 without a single drum lesson. It was after that I got all the learning in, but I'm really grateful that I did, because
yeah, yeah,
it makes me a more dynamic and able drummer, and I enjoy myself more because I know what I'm doing a bit more, so I can go I feel like it's a lot happier rather than just having it all in your head and thinking. And it's less about, it can be less about emotion and more about technique now, which was actually really a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot, and it was a lot of practice. And I did that year course, and then I went and lived in France for a while, and I was again in the middle of nowhere, and I just practiced every day, 8 hours, kept notes, everything, just worked
Yeah.
my way through everything I had, and just kind of um, just almost tried to relearn how to play the drums. But yeah, I just practiced and practiced and practiced.
Yeah, but of course you're a drum instructor as well.
I do
You
do that. Yeah, yeah. It's
drum, yeah.
now and again, and it helps you to clarify in your own mind sometimes what it is that you're trying to explain. But yeah, it's stood me in good stead when the when you're not like gigging end to end.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
good, it's a good thing to do. So yeah, I do some lessons. Yeah.
Well, do you ever get like students also like they want to learn how to play drums, or maybe they just want to have lessons because it's you teaching them, or maybe they're Ride fans and they say, "Oh, I'm gonna have drumming lessons with Laws because I
And
like Laws."
there might be a bit of that hit there, but then we've got to get on with it, haven't we? So at some point they're going to have to do some drumming. It might have been like you, Anne. You could have just stood there and watched me
I
play.
know what, yeah. I
Like you were talking about your drum lessons that you had.
know. Well, well, what's the best way? So, like, because of lockdown and COVID and stuff, do you still do face to face, or is it just online
I think the
teaching?
COVID thing was actually the moment when, again, it was a bit of an epiphany. I'd done some teaching before, and I hadn't really enjoyed it that much. And in some ways, it was hard to be in the same room as someone, because you're always in somebody else's space or whatever. But actually, I found that when I did the online teaching, it felt much better. I felt like I could communicate more because you have to explain it better. You can't just get on the kit and tap away or show them what to. You have to explain it, and actually, that's a really good way of teaching someone. Is just talking. The talking, the explaining, the guiding, all of that kind of stuff. So actually, it worked really well. And the other thing being, I'm home and I can, once the lesson finishes, I can go and make a cup of tea. I'm in my own house. It's lovely. I get to walk around the garden, come back, do another one, and I love that. It really worked well for me. Whereas
Yeah,
before, I wasn't enjoying it, being in other people's spaces, having to navigate their environments. So yeah, weirdly, I think I found something that I'm happy doing. And I did Taekwondo. I studied Taekwondo for many years, and my teacher was actually had multiple sclerosis, and he was one of the best. He was sort of one of the highest ranking Taekwondo practitioners and teachers in the country. He was taught by the guy that Master Ricky Ha, who brought Taekwondo to the UK, and he was an incredible guy, absolutely fantastic, and a brilliant teacher. But what was one of the things that was really amazing about him was that because he'd lost a lot of the movement and ability in his legs or hands, he was very good at explaining things, and he would, in a way, that was what really stuck with you. And in a way, I used to feel that sometimes on the Zoom. It's like, I can't be with you. I can't show you. I can't do it. I can't, so I'm just going to try and explain it. And actually, that can
yeah,
be the best thing, because then you come up with the golden nugget that, that actually is really what it's all about. So yeah,
yeah,
I sort of drew on that quite a bit with it all. And yeah, I found it worked for me. It was out
yeah,
in lockdown, but it's one of those things. I think a lot of people had them in lockdown where it's an epiphany. You realize this new thing, and yeah, for
yeah.
me, that.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned your taekwondo, because I've also found out you've got a black belt in
Yeah,
taekwondo. It's just whoa, it's incredible. It's amazing.
yeah. I'm
And
second
also,
down. Yeah,
and Mark is also
yeah.
into taekwondo as well.
Well,
You're like sparring partners or something.
yeah, I mean, weirdly, it was, I have to say, in a sense, it was him that kind of got me started on it, because we were in the animal house, and he was coming back. For exercise, I was kind of like, I was part of a gym. I used to go to the gym, and go on the treadmill and watch MTV and lift weights and all this kind of stuff. And it's so
Yeah.
boring. It's so boring and you just feel like so empty and 80s. And it's like all these all these people just worrying about how they look. And it was so boring and empty and meaningless. And Mark started talking about going to Taekwondo and saying, oh, it's great. And we do this, we do that. And as soon as I went along, it was the opposite. It was about people and like courtesy and there was a sort of spiritual element and the sense of learning an actual art, something artistic, and all the exercises are like running around and sit-ups and push-ups, and much more fun than this sort of boring gym like sort of prison.
Yeah. And watching video.
Yeah, and it was all about like a different, more like an internal strength and an internal power and an internal fitness, and I loved that. So I just didn't stop after that, and I went every week and or 2 times a week, and
Yeah.
me and Mark would be sparring. It was great fun. Yeah, kick each other's asses. It was good fun.
Have you done competitions?
Oh yeah. I did competitions, came back with medals.
Wow.
I was national champion, I think, at one point, certainly for the
Wow.
that sort of thing. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. The competitions were incredible. Like, you can't explain the amount of nerves and adrenaline that you get, and when you go in the ring and fight, it's just, honestly, it's just amazing. It's just mind blowing. I came back from that, and I used to think, I used to sort of try and recognize and sort of think, well done, because this people sort of think of you as this shy, shoegazing, sort of sensitive guy from, you're supposed to be part of that, but no, you didn't. You went in that ring and you fought, and you kicked each other about or whatever, and you fought. You literally fought this person, kicked their ass, or they kicked yours, or whatever. I don't know, but it takes guts to do that, and it was like, I used to think, oh yeah, good on you for breaking out of the sort of shy, young, artistic shoegazer.
But were you not worried that you might hurt your arms or your hands? I mean, do you still do it? Do you still go to competitions now, or?
I don't do it so much now, and it's more of a it's a kind of it's not because I don't want to, but it's a long story. But yeah, I don't go so much now, yeah, I mean, back in the day, I'm fully aware that I could really damage myself, but or you just sort of try and go like, well, just don't hurt yourself. And like, try and be even more vigilant and just be more precise. There was a lovely sort of bloody mindedness about it, and break boards, and so be like, well, use the right technique so you don't hurt yourself. It's just sort of like, that was the sort of spirit of the club, really. Do it right.
Well, I also found out that you've got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in music.
Yeah.
And you're currently doing a PhD as well.
Yeah.
So we'll be calling you Dr. Laws.
I do. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder whether it will ever happen or whether it's just all going on in my head. And we'll have to see about that. But I did really enjoy going, just sort of learning about music just as much as I enjoyed learning about drums. Like I said, I did all the really, all the albums with Ride and maybe the most important stuff without knowing anything. But I really did want to learn about the drums, so that's why I went on. And I'm so glad that I was able to learn all about drumming, Latin percussion, and, as I say, techniques, and just sort of being able to look at the reading music. I couldn't read music before, but I learned on there. And there was one tiny little module on the drum tech course that was kind of music theory. Again, didn't have any music theory before, but I really enjoyed that course. I really enjoyed learning about it. It was really basic, but it was music theory. Yeah. And it was kind of like, oh, this is really fascinating. And so it was kind of like, that tiny little thing allowed me to apply for the degree, and then really started to just go from there, and then and open up, and then by the end of that, I again just had so many ideas and wanted to keep going, so went to and it's a bit like that, really. You just love the thing, you just love the subject,
Yeah. Well, is last month on your Facebook page you posted about I think it's called Sound in Architecture, or one of your
Yeah,
sound and architecture pieces.
yeah.
This sort of like come from after learning, you know, like the like drumming, like drum tech, or uh, having degrees in music and things. It also said it was featured on BBC Radio 3, but sadly, it's not there anymore.
Ah,
I tried clicking on the link and it's not there now. So,
yeah.
yeah, I think
You
they only
definitely,
put it there for a week. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's definitely what that is to do with is I mean, I found, I suppose I've always been interested in like, I guess, music and architecture. And it's like, I'm not saying that they have to be the same, but in my mind, sometimes like writing a song is like building something, and you know, and sometimes when I listen to music, I hear it in a kind of, I can hear it in a way that is like, it's like a moving building maybe or something, but it's, I hear things in them. And it's like, I've always been interested by that anyway. And also like the sort of modular composition, like Steve Reich and all those, the music where it's kind of like constantly repeating, but always changing. And you have a phrase that develops and comes back. And I'm really fascinated by that. But also the other thing is that, rather like their sort of drive blind noise. It's like I really got into field recording, which is just the sound of the world outside of the recording studio. So if you think somebody like me who spent fucking ages in a recording studio, I've seen what goes in to make records. I've seen how fake it is, really. You know, when people listen to, if they buy a record and listen to or hear something on the radio, that music has been filleted, cut, tailed, sliced, overdubbed, maximized, had chorus on it, flanger. It's been
yeah,
it's been perfected beyond. You know, it's not real anymore. It's not. That's not what happened. That's not even. That didn't happen in the room. It's just completely fake. You know, and you know, I can say that with. I mean it because it's like for me, it's like if you want to hear something really dangerous, go and go and listen to like I said, chainsaw or listen to a truck driving over some metal bars or a huge metal door being pulled by a pulley, or go to a factory, listen to some of
yeah,
the crazy industrial sounds, and in a way that sort of cleanses your palate. And so I just really got into like listening to the world, and field recording became a really powerful thing for me. And I guess Chris Watson was the other one. You know, I used to love Cabaret Voltaire, and you know
yeah, yeah,
he came from that and just basically discovered field recording. So what I used to do was record buildings. I used to listen to buildings and record the sound of buildings, and completely kind of like synchronize myself with it. And then I would get all these recordings and then perform them like with triggering and sampling and Ableton Live and maybe even electronic drum kit and a mixing desk and stuff like that, and kind of like it being a meta performance within the building of the sounds of the building, and stuff like that. And the one that I did that got played on there was when sometimes when I do this, I deliberately stayed away from trying to do anything rhythmic, but then I did completely the other way, and I went for this one piece where I just absolutely scratched all the itches and went yes, 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 and I just like completely went nuts with it. And it's a really really rhythmic piece, and that's the one that got used. But it's what it is. It's the sounds of me slamming doors in a stairwell and clapping my hands with lots of reverb in again another in a basement, and then stamping on the floor, and the sound of me maybe just tapping with a drumstick once, like a
yeah,
metal grill up in the maintenance sort of areas, or dragging a drumstick just across, not trying to play it, not like, oh, I'm drumming, but just trying to find different sounds that you could get,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then sample it and then create something out of it. And so yeah, so that's what that was.
Well, is that on YouTube somewhere, or is that somewhere
I'm
we
going to
can?
try and find a way of releasing it. I think
Yeah,
and in a way it was that thing made me think, yeah, I need to do this properly.
yeah.
So I might try and find a way of I'd like to, yeah, I'd really like to sort of release some of this stuff properly now,
Well,
because it's a really I'm really into it.
yeah.
I
Well,
like
we've got
the
to.
building.
I'm gonna ask you now about this new project that you've got,
Yeah,
and this one is with Steve
yeah,
from
yeah.
Ride. Ride.
Yeah,
It's the only reason I found out about it is because I followed you on Twitter and you
yeah,
posted it on your Twitter account. It's called ID. Now
yeah,
this wasn't so like clear to me from the start, but then
yeah,
I sort of like realized ID is actually the two middle letters of Ride.
yeah.
So it's like if you remove the R, which may be Mark, or E, which is which is on the bell. It was sort of like then you're left with just you and Steve.
It
And
was a little joke.
is
It
that
was,
a reason why you call it ID? Is that what it
yeah.
is?
Well, the thing is, you have to know where it came from. So ID didn't form, and then we thought, oh, what should we do? It was the opposite way around. It was in lockdown, the original lockdown, and you know, everyone was trying to work out how to maintain it, how to still be a musician, and there was, you know, there's a fair bit of it about. But basically, I was sort of worked out with Steve that we could do a version of a song, you know, film ourselves playing and then splice it together so that it looks like you're playing together in the room. And what we did was we took Ride songs and then reworked them as instrumentals, focusing the bass and drums and maybe the synth element, and kind of make them a bit more soundtrack related. And this is you have to look at them on YouTube. There's only four. There's four, but they're all based around Ride songs, and basically we would take that and sort of almost develop some of the sides of it, the non-guitar sides of it. And that's not because we're not saying guitars are bad, but it was quite nice to bring out some of the synth or string or cinematic qualities, and just approach them slightly differently. And so basically, first of all, we did the music and the videos, and then it was like, oh, what are we going to call ourselves? And you know, Steve's got a great sense of humor, so it suited it perfectly. He said ID, and I think I got it quickly enough. But yeah, that's the joke. It's just a little in joke because we were basically playing Ride songs, but it's only the rhythm section, and so it was fun to call it ID. But please do check them out. I'm proud of them. They're on YouTube. There's only four. And
and you've also released an album. I'm going to ask about it. It's called you've released one, the Glacier National Park. It's called.
Yeah.
And I was telling you about this earlier, but it's only available as a cassette tape, which it reminded me because you've got that really nice pillow there of a boombox, so it's sort of like a cassette. So is this like a conscious like decision, only getting it released as a cassette tape and not CD nor sort of like vinyl? Because I think more people now have got turntables. They have record players and not really cassette players. So
First of all, it's not only available on cassette. You can get a download, but
download, yeah, of course.
We decided to make 100 cassettes. I mean, this is a totally homegrown cottage industry. It's just me and Steve. We've got no record label. There's no funding, no nothing. It's just all us. And the ID thing that we did, you know, it was a lot of work putting those videos together, but between us, we did it. You know, I'd do the video editing, or, you know, we'd all have different roles, and we did it. We did it completely ourselves. And the Glacier National Park is like, that's just taking it a step further. And this time it's not related to Ride whatsoever, and it's all new material. And what I wanted to do is I love soundtrack music, and basically sometimes there'd be I'd like watching The Dark, or I'm trying to think of some now, but or Blade Runner or whatever, but there'd be a time when you'd be watching something and there'd be like a sort of bass and drum thing going on. You think, we got to do this. I want to do that. And so I kind of wanted to do a sort of edgy bass and drum album. But so I'd say to Steve, just send me some, like, I mean, that probably says like, send me some noise or whatever. But of course, he sent me more than that. And so it started to turn into, oh, well, these could be like tracks. And we'd build it up. We did it again all through lockdown. And we built them up into these sort of like imaginary soundtracks. And again, we did it all ourselves, all at home. And it just felt like, well, it's a bit boring to just put it as a download. So let's make something. Let's make a cassette. And the reason it was a cassette is like, number one, printing a record is like takes a year almost. The waiting time. It also takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to make a record. It costs a lot, and we didn't really have that kind of starting capital. But and also just learning about the sort of cassette culture. It was a few years ago, but Ben Walker is one of the writers for Bandcamp. He's a programmer, and he's a friend of mine. I met him in Gaz with Gaz Coombs, and he's one of the sort of key people behind Bandcamp. And they're always doing cool things. And they sort of brought back the cassettes, as being a sort of just like an artifact, something that is just nice. Yeah. I threw away my cassettes, and I wish I hadn't now. But it's basically a physical product, and there's no way we could have like done a whole album unless we got some record company interest. So basically, we just printed up 100 cassettes, did all the artwork ourselves, created a postcard and a badge. Chose everything and just sold them on Bandcamp. Yeah, they're very, very limited edition.
Yeah, well, why not CD though?
CD, yeah, maybe. I guess you could. It might be. We could do that next. Now we've done a cassette. Next one could be a CD. Yeah. But it just felt like a really sort of nice, wholesome, retro. Satisfying. Like I can remember having cassettes in my hand and just like it's an object. And CDs for me, sometimes they've always been a little bit like Dire Straits. We'll never get away from that first bunch. It's good, but it's also quite normal. It's quite sort of normal. Whereas a cassette's got character to it, and even if you never play it, you've got it. And look at the little wheels, and it's sort of analog. I suppose it's analog in a way.
Yeah.
Like, you got your vinyl, which is analog. You got your cassette, which is not as interesting as vinyl, but it's still analog.
Yeah.
Like a CD, but then you're into sort of like digital.
The digital, yeah.
I've got nothing against it, but it just felt like more fun because it was, it was almost like a real sort of cottage industry. Like, let's do a cassette. We don't.
Yeah.
So,
well, do you have a cassette player yourself?
Yeah, probably somewhere. Yeah, I've got the cassette and then nothing to play it on. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of shot ourselves in the foot there, I think. Yeah.
No, so like, well, if anyone, I'm gonna sort of like add the link to the Bandcamp page because I actually got myself a badge.
Yeah.
So I thought I love badges, but I thought because even though I do have a cassette player, it's really horrible, and I don't want to sort of like listen to.
You can get a download. It's only a $5. You get the whole thing, but it's like. But like, I mean, I think quite a nice, I think quite a nice way of doing things is like you want something physical, but also the download is quite convenient. So it's one of the reasons why I put the badges on, because for me, if I've bought loads of stuff off Bandcamp and I get the download so I can listen to music, but then I want something real. So that's why I'd probably I like it when they put something on offer. So I'd go like, yeah, I've got the download, and then I've got the badge as well, because it's like. Then I feel like I own something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just me sort of like, it's part of why I wanted to keep that balance of physical and digital.
Yeah, well, it's the same with me because I've never actually sort of like done any download because I do prefer sort of like physical format. I like either CD or record, but I think the cassette one is quite good as well because I used to have a cassette collection.
It's quite keen. It's different, and it almost doesn't make sense, which is quite a nice way of doing it. I'm not saying that the cassette is the most ultimate quality. It's just a physical artifact that's quite characterful, and I just, if it comes to it, if we work out how much it costs, maybe we can do we could do a CD print of like
CD run of it. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I think that would be. Yeah, well, Aiden said that the fascinating stuff about Taekwondo and the music of buildings. And he also said that he associates CDs with Dire Straits as well.
Yeah. It's our generation, isn't it? It was like a Ford Probe. It was kind of like a Yeah, everybody. It just didn't have. It wasn't like where the kids were at. You know, the real kids were playing. I got my, barbed wire kisses. I've got on cassette. I've got Psycho Candy on record. And it was great because I could play barbed wire kisses in the car in my little it was a little boombox, and I drive along. You got your boombox, and you could just play it, and And I think I had the Cult Electric on cassette. Man, it was I happy times with the cassette.
Yeah. W said, would you mind telling us a funny drum story?
Oh, I'm terrible. I haven't really got any. I mean, that really probably one of the worst people for sort of anecdotes. I know people that have got like more anecdotes. They're better at anecdotes than anything they've ever done. Whereas I probably have done some funny and interesting things, but I'm just terrible at telling the stories. I can think of a time when like I was sort of drumming and getting to the really noisy bit in Dreams Burn Down or Seagull or something, and I just like started did a sort of shout like a like that, and shouted out loud and like really sort of angsty shout, and I dislocated my jaw. So then I was drumming, my mouth was shut like this. It was kind of like,
oh no,
and I was stuck in this grimace and didn't know what to do, and I had to just keep playing, going yeah, and I just like played. Luckily, I wasn't singing. You know, nobody had to hear my voice, but I effectively dislocated my jaw with this sort of visceral.
oh dear.
I can't remember, but I think in between after the next song, I did something. It might have lasted even a bit longer, but somehow I got it back in, and could carry on. But that was a really weird feeling. Yeah.
And did they notice it?
Stupidest and ridiculous things I've done, but yeah.
The band members are like, no, is it when it happened?
No, you don't know. The good thing about that is that you can keep your head down. You
know, yeah, that's true.
Everyone thinks, oh yeah, he's just doing his normal thing. You know, this Loz, he's a shoegazer. He's gazing at his shoes. Yeah, keep his head down, looking at his shoes. Yeah.
Vincent in Paris, he actually asked me if I could get your signature.
Right.
And
write it on the.
Well, maybe next time I see you or something, I can get something and then send it to him. So hopefully I'll see you again soon.
Sure.
But yeah, what's next for Ride though? Any gigs or any other?
Yeah, we've got festivals all this summer. The next one is Pop Messe in Czechoslovakia, I think. We've got a festival coming up soon. Quite a lot of people are asking for the Nowhere show that you saw, which is the entire album of our debut Nowhere in track order, plus a few other songs. So weirdly, it's the 30th anniversary of Nowhere, but on 2020, so it's all a bit delayed. But basically, festivals. There could be some more Nowhere shows. We were also asked to do our second album, Going Blank Again, in Primavera recently. And on the back of that, we've been offered a few potential shows where we do the album start to finish. So that would be good fun doing that. As I say, festivals and maybe a bit of touring in some other countries. And then it will be the end of the year. So, maybe, if anything new is going to come out, I think it will be next year.
Next year, yeah. You're not... have you done Shine On in Minehead? I think Andy Bell is doing Shine On this year, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as a solo, but I don't think
solo one.
Yeah.
Is that something that maybe Ride would do? I love Shine On because it's indoor. I mean, I can't really do so like outdoor festivals, but Shine On is indoor. That's why I love it. Yeah. So do you think it's something that maybe next year, or if you get asked?
With these things, it's not the band. Usually, the band's saying, "Oh, I'd really like to." You just wait for the offer to come in. So yeah. If we get offered, if it's good, maybe yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any drumming heroes?
Oh yeah.
Apart from Pete De Freitas, because you already mentioned Pete De Freitas. So any other?
Pete De Freitas definitely, and then Elvin Jones is my absolute hero. So yeah, he a jazz drummer, played with Coltrane, and I've seen him. Seen him twice in Ronnie Scott's towards the end of his life, and I feel really, he signed my practice book, my drum practice book, and I was and because I've been on the receiving end, I asked him, we had a hug, and that was a really good.
Yeah.
He was probably like 80 or 90, and it was just really nice to connect with someone who, for me, was an absolute legend and has been through so much and done so much, and is such a rich, soulful person. So yeah, Elvin Jones, Art Blakey as well, but Elvin Jones for me is way more soulful. And then everyone else, probably everybody's heard before. So your John Bonhams, your Keith Moons.
Yeah.
But the two ones that are a bit more, I guess, more different would be Peter Freitas and Elvin Jones.
Yeah.
Elvin to me
You
Elvin is the man. He really is.
Yeah, you're being compared to Keith Moon.
Right.
It's like it says like furious drumming or something. That's what it says on Wikipedia.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was the joke is that when we did our first recording session for the demo of Ride in Mark's kitchen, so the first rehearsal was at my mum's garage. I mean, this is it, you're teenagers. The first demo session was in Mark's kitchen in his mum and dad's house, and whenever we got to the end of the take or whatever, I think it might have been Chelsea Girl, and then Mark said something like blah 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 Keith Moon, and I was kind of like, what? I didn't know. I'd never heard of him. I didn't know anything about this person. I then had to find out about him, and eventually kind of got in. But yeah, he wasn't like a. It wasn't like it wasn't like the reason that I do anything the way I do. I think I just anyway, and then found out. Oh, there's some other people that do that.
Well, do you twirl? I don't think I saw you twirl when you don't.
Now that's a good question. But imagine that the drumming community is divided on this one. But I am a definite fuck off twirlers. No way. I mean, I like the guy that does all the kind of crazy, the ZZ Top, the drummer in the wrong gig. That kind of stuff. It's amazing. I love all that, but never ever wanted to do twirling, and it's it's something for all the wrong reasons.
Do you still go to gigs? And
oh yeah.
And do you sort of like look at the drummers and then sort of like see?
Oh yeah, The drummers, they're quite often the most interest. They can be some of the, they're quite, I'm fascinated to watch drummers. And I mean, it doesn't mean if I go to a gig, I'm only watching the drummer. I might be more interested in the singer, or if the bass player's doing something interesting, or guitarist. But of course, I'm interested in that. It's like an apprenticeship, isn't it? Or it's a fellowship. Being a drummer, you are curious about what other people do.
Yeah.
You want to learn from them, and one of the best ways of learning is to watch. Which again goes back to you watching drummers in your drum lesson. It's true. You can practice at home. You can do all sorts of things, but you could then go to a gig and see somebody do something, and you come back and you've either got the confidence to try it yourself, or just everything falls into place. So yeah, watching other drummers is a great way to learn. Yeah, and the drumathon thing, that was all really interesting, because the drumathon was just about just the drummer, and people weirdly said, oh yeah, it's really fascinating, and loads of people were saying, I just never really noticed them before. It's so funny for people to just be like, yeah, it's really interesting, yeah, it's quite busy, aren't they, or like, yeah. It's kind of like,
I was the other day I was sort of like watching a video on YouTube about the teardrop explodes, and they had a sort of like a drummer which is at the front. But I hardly see that nowadays. I mean, they don't put the drummer at the front when they're playing, so it's just a shame, because
it was 1960s thing where they used to sometimes have everyone in a row, or that. And we once did a Top of the Pops performance when I think I was at the front and Mark was behind, and they did some weird sort of setup there. So I think it was Birdman, and they put me at the front, and yeah, it was a different setup. So it's kind of but yeah, it's a sort of '60s thing, I think.
Yeah. Well, advice to drummers, because I know that you're being a drum instructor.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that, would you give that as an advice to sort of like aspiring drummers that
Yeah, I
do
mean,
your lessons? Or
the best. There's I did I didn't have many lessons at the start, but I did go and see, weirdly, David Hassel in Manchester, and occasionally I'd make the pilgrimage up to Manchester to see Dave Hassel, who's a great teacher. And in a way, I'm going to give him credit by sort of saying that it was basically what he told me, but it's also part of what I believe anyway, and the way that I've learned drumming. That the most important, what's the most important part of a drummer? And it's their ears. You've got to listen to the music. You've got to listen to the music. Make sure you use your ears to listen to a lot of music. Don't just listen to one type of music. Listen to lots of different types of music. Listen to what the drummer's doing. Listen to what the bass drum's doing. Listen to what the left hand is doing. But use your ears and listen. Really listen. Really listen to music and take it in. And then, yeah, of course, you can learn techniques, you can learn practice, but it's all going to come down to your understanding of music, and you get that through listening. So yeah, listen to a lot of music and maybe even it's and take it on board, and then do all the normal stuff like practice and control.
And don't forget to protect your ears as well,
Yeah.
because I know that quite a lot of drummers, they have this sort of like tinnitus. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's very, very good. And taking it to more kind of second practical level. Yeah, do protect your ears, definitely, because I didn't do anything like that at first, and obviously Ride's very noisy band, and also you've got to bear in mind that the cymbals are at your ear level, so they're very high level, high frequency noise coming in at your ears. So yeah. I started to use earplugs on one tour, and they're really good now. You can get special ones that mold into your ears for a really good price, and they mold in, and they just lower the volume by 15 decibels. They're called ER15s, and it's really, really worth getting those. So definitely any drummer should probably just play there, because there's basically no safe level to play a drum kit. If you go through the sort of like the sound decibel levels, drum kit would be up in dangerous, like it just is. So you have to wear some kind of ear protection if you want to keep your hearing.
Right, this is my last question now, because I know I've been sort of like keeping you over. It's like an hour and a half, but being a fangirl myself, how do you feel towards sort of like fans? Because I know after gigs you may be really tired and sort of like. So how do you feel about sort of like someone going up to you, oh, can you sign this, or can I have a photograph with you and stuff like that?
It's an honor and a pleasure, and basically I know what it feels like, because I've done that and I do it. I still do it. Like I said, when I met Elvin Jones, what I didn't want to just stand. I wanted to talk, but I wanted a signature. And and so I totally know how that feels. When I met my idols, Public Enemy as well, and when I met each of those, I needed to have a picture with them. I really, really did. I know how it feels. So I am a fan of other people, and I behave like that. So I just remember how I feel when I'm with someone that I admire, and then even if I find it a bit perverse that they feel that way about me, I'll try and do what I can do to try and either be that person or just to try and entertain, try and sort of see it from their point of view, because I know how I so I kind of would think about it.
Well, thank you for that. So at least I won't feel too bad. So like, because sometimes you feel like, oh my god, they don't really like you approaching them and asking for photographs and signatures. But at least now I know that it's okay for me to approach you after the gig. Oh my god, thank you so much. And I've got to remember that I need to get your signature for Vincent. So hopefully someday, and I'll get to see you again. And I want to say thank you once again for that after party, the after show pass that you gave me
That's
before.
okay.
That was so good because I got to meet the other band members and have
Yeah.
a photo with them as well. So
Yeah.
that was
Well, it
super.
was the only way that we were going to meet in person because all this has been done online, and it's a bit crazy. So much of it being online. So it was kind of good old fashioned meet seeing person for real. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Laws. Oh, soon
Okay.
you'll be Dr. Laws. So. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And do you have any other sort of like words say to, especially to our like people from Manila in Manila or in
You've got to say hi
California?
to them.
Just,
I got to say
yeah,
hi to yeah, and lovely to hear that people are listening in France and all the places that you listed out. I mean, so yeah, I would have said goodbye to everyone anyway, but thanks for everyone for listening. And yeah, have a good Sunday. Watch the
yeah.
tennis.
Okay. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend and see you again soon.
Yeah, and keep on supporting drummers.
Yes, of course. Oh my God, yes. Thank you.
All right, cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Lars.
Bye.
Bye. Oh my God. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Yeah, so enjoy the like I said, I mean enjoy the rest of your weekend. I know in the Philippines it's not long to go now. I mean it's nearly so like almost Monday now in the Philippines. But yeah, do keep an eye out for next week's guest announcement posts. We've got another awesome drummer for next week. And as always, love music, love life, and love drummers because they're just so awesome. So, yeah, see you again next week. Bye. Bye.